still my baby, living in a cold world.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Indie Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Brady, and today I'm here with Ryan Yo, better known by his artist name Boylife, who semi-recently released his first single, Peas, back in February. It grew extremely quickly, and as of now, it has just over 500,000 plays on Spotify. Welcome to the show, Ryan. How have you been?
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm chilling. I'm living. Quarantined,
Yeah, it's been crazy. Can we talk about how you got started in music for a second?
Sure. I guess I've been doing trying to write songs and stuff for like maybe the last 9 years or so, 8, 9 years.
Wow.
But before that, I actually started with like recording engineering.
Got you.
And even before that, I was just playing guitar. So it started kind of just like me playing guitar, and then I wanted to like sing and stuff, and then I was like trying to learn how to like do some of like the recording stuff because I was like, it must not be me that sounds like trash. It's my microphone. It was actually me, but when I learned how to engineer better, I just got to hear my awfulness in like crystal clear, high quality. But,
Yeah, I get that.
So started there, and then just started trying to like write songs and stuff, and it was just like many years of just sucking completely and like teaching myself how to like write songs and like sing.
Yeah.
And picking up production along the way as well, alongside my man Nick, who is like my main musical partner.
Oh.
And so we've kind of just taught ourselves how to do every aspect, every step of the process, and
Yeah,
that's basically
wow.
the journey right there. Basically, just been making all the stuff with it's just myself and my partner Nick, the two of us.
Yeah. Wow. You're a big inspiration to me and my friends. And yeah, I mean, I've just been trying to work on production too. So,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to any new independent artists or musicians who are just starting out since you've been doing this for so long?
Honestly, the biggest thing is learn to love failing, because if you're not afraid of being terrible, and if you're like really ready and willing to try new things, you're gonna learn at a much quicker rate than anybody else, because like the natural inclination is like you don't want to face, your suck.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
discouraging and it's painful, but like the more willing you are just to kind of like be bad and embarrassing, and it doesn't have to be like embarrassing at all, like you can really just be making stuff on your own and never show it to anybody. But
Yeah.
the point is, like, I think experimenting and failing, that's how you learn real quick. That's like a cheat code right there. If
Hmm.
you're like fearless about that, then you're going to be able to pick things up at a much quicker rate than if you were only staying in your comfort zone.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
some
so
good
for me, the
advice.
big breakthrough is just kind of came when I was like, what if I abandon like this idea or like this like internal like need to be good? It's like ultimately like kind of an insecurity.
Yeah.
So it's like, what can I do to like quiet this down? And so for me, it was just like, I'm just gonna try and make as many songs as possible, and I'm not gonna show anybody. And with that like ironclad rule in place, it just kind of made me fearless with what I was making after that. And good things did come out of that, and some of them I eventually did put out. So.
Yeah, I totally get that. So just letting go of that insecurity and inhibition, just forcing yourself to continue, that gives progress for you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like I mentioned, when I say learn to love failure, what I really mean is like learn to love learning, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because within each failure, there's like a lesson to be had. It's like, okay, I made this track. It sounds weak. It sounds thin. Why is it like that? And like when you can dissect that, then you come back to bat next time, and you're like, I know how to make this kick a little bit more bumping. I know how to
True.
make this snare pop right. Or like when it comes to like songwriting, I understand a little better how to use arranging.
Oh,
So that's the first thing, is like don't be afraid of failure. And
yeah.
the second thing is like don't get comfortable, don't quit. They kind of sit in the same spot for me. It's like I think you should always be kind of risking it a little bit, and you should always be failing. Like to me, it's like you should be failing at least like 20% of the time, because if you're not, that means you're not pushing for anything new and you're not growing anymore. So it's like
Gotcha.
kind of like a cold, hard way to measure it. Like just by definition, if you're failing 20% of the time, hopefully that means it's because you're trying new things. And if you're not ever failing and you're always like pretty pleased with what you're making, like you're probably not reaching hard enough, in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion.
You gotta get out
So
that comfort
yeah,
zone.
yeah. So that's big to me for sure. And
Yeah.
I guess like one other thing, if you're in production in particular, I think just taking time to dissect other people's productions,
Hmm.
or even trying to recreate them, can be a kind of like a fast track.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
good practice. For those that don't know, you're also part of Monica, which is an LA boy band, right? That,
Yeah. Wow. You know about Monica?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
wild. I'm
Yeah, you
flattered.
guys released an EP and a couple singles, and I saw you guys are on tour soon too. I love your music also. And like if I had to
Thank you.
characterize it, I'd say like cheerful indie pop with like some 80s influence. I don't know. Love the production.
Kind of like that. Yeah, I just try to make like the happiest songs ever about like depression, and
Yeah.
that's sort of what that is.
I saw your I saw your SoundCloud bio was
That's
what happy songs for depressed people
happy
or like
songs for
sad
sad
people.
people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, that's fully the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's crazy that you know that. I'm very flattered. Yeah, yeah. So I'm a part of that as well. The ethos behind that project is very different from the Boy Life project.
Oh,
Um, and like the way the music is made is also like entirely different.
all right.
Um, Monica is kind of for me an exercise in like first idea, best idea.
Uh
So just like
comes to
whatever I'm
mind.
making. Yeah, yeah, like not stressing it and like not really worrying about trying to make something good, but just trying to make it feel right and like trusting the instinct fully. It's like an exercise in just growing your intuition, I suppose.
Got you.
Um, yeah, where the Boy Life project, every song it's like very, very, very labored over and like I've thought about it from like every angle you could imagine, sonically and lyrically and melodically.
So yeah, Boy Life is your personal project aside from Monica. And
Yeah, so Monica's a band, is a boy band, and Boy Life is a solo project.
got you, got you. There's definitely a different style and vibe, like production wise and vocally. I can like
Oh yeah,
yeah, for Boy Life, um for me I can like hear Frank Ocean, Rex Orange County. You kind of sound like a blend between that and then just your own thing too, totally.
yeah. Thank you. I mean, those are great artists for sure. The vibe is very different. I don't really tell people often that I do both. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody about Boy Life, like just right now, I'm extremely shocked to hear that you mentioned Monica because it's
Gosh.
very different music.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can I ask who are your biggest musical inspirations like for Boy Life?
Prince. Prince is the biggest one.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. So for anybody who's listening and doesn't really know much about Prince, Prince. He was like, God, I don't even know how to like say it. He's just truly an icon and a pioneer, and he just made so much music, an insane amount of music,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just really fearless. I think he did an incredible job of being like hyper vulnerable, but like hyper confident and fearless with that vulnerability. He was not afraid to take that like really personal thing and just package it into a song. But he was so excellent at what he did. He knew how to take these like rough idea, like these harsh ideas, these harsh realities, these very personal things, and package them into these perfect pop songs and just Trojan horse them into the mainstream consciousness. Like he was incredibly, incredibly successful by any measure. But
Yeah.
like the nature of his material is so bizarre. Um, and really like that's kind of the goal with Boy Life. It's just like extreme vulnerability, but like completely in a fearless, unapologetic, confident way. Just being able to like pour, like just trying to like I always explain Boy Life as like with each song, I'm trying to like fashion a container out
Mm-hmm.
of like my perfect music, my idea of perfect music. This is what perfect, like beautiful music sounds like to me. And I pour like a piece of my soul into that container, and that's a Boy Life song.
Wow.
And inevitably, the stuff that goes into the song ends up being very personal, very vulnerable, and very private often. But like for me, it's important to be able to go out there and just like own that stuff.
No, that's fine. You can
No
curse. It
cursing
doesn't
from
matter.
me.
Okay.
All right, but yeah, it's just about it's about owning that shit for real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like in doing so, hopefully giving other people like room and like just providing an example of what it looks like to love yourself and like not even be a little bit ashamed, but to also like yourself, you know.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the goal with Boy Life.
Yeah. Wow. Let's talk peas for a second. That song, my friend Isaac showed it to me after he found it on Spotify with like 600 plays or yeah, I Googled you and that's how I found out about Monica and all that.
Mm.
But production wise, it definitely reminded me of like other artists I listened to and just you had some really beautiful vocals on that track. Melancholic, a lot of ambient sounds. There's swells and lots of dynamic intensity throughout the track. It just keeps you hooked and it's really
Yeah, thank
emotional.
you.
What was your vision behind making peas? Like, did you grab any inspiration from your life, or what's the meaning behind it to you?
Yeah, yeah. In a nutshell, the story behind the song is it's kind of about I was in like a really dark time of my life. There was like about a year I was living with my parents, and it was just like really rough. I have almost no memories from that year.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of the things that I do remember is like in the midst of all that, like just my parents who are Korean. My parents came from Korea,
Mm-hmm.
and they immigrated here. I was born here, but like it's almost like the universal expression of love from like immigrant parents is like fruit
Yeah.
or like food, just asking like, did you eat? And so for my parents, it's like, for me, I'd wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning or something like that, and just like kind of be ambling around the house, walk to the kitchen, and they'd be just right there, like a plate of cut fruit waiting for me.
Yeah.
And like for me, that was just my parents like telling me that they love me in the midst of all that. So I wanted to capture that in the song, like just the simultaneously just like a chilliness and an iciness and like the coldness of reality and what that is,
Mm.
and simultaneously just like almost like a maternal warmth. And I wanted the song to feel like enveloping, like you can really just sink into it. It feels like a hug, like when the bass line comes in and everything.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I wanted it to elevate, have that intensity, have that arc. The structure of the
Absolutely.
song is kind of like non-traditional because there's no chorus or anything. It's just like a verse, an instrumental break, a verse, instrumental break, a bridge, and then instrumental break, and then it ends with another verse. And it's like the instrumental breaks and the verses have the exact same melody.
Mm.
So it's very, very non-traditional in that way. But I think with the Boy Life songs, I definitely try to let the intuition guide me. I think my number one rule for like music is if it feels right, it is right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if like, you're using some weird interval like a flat nine and somebody's like, oh, like that's wrong, it's dissonant. That doesn't matter. It's just,
Yeah.
if it feels right, it's right. That's all it comes down to.
I
And like
totally
learning to
agree.
trust your gut with that. So yeah, with all the sonic details, like the one like it was never to me like about the technical aspect of how each one was achieved, but just fully like, does this contribute to the world? And does the song feel like the emotions that I'm packing in here? Like if I had no lyrics, would I be able to feel the same thing? Um,
Oh yeah.
I'm not trying to do that thing that a lot of artists do where like the song completely mismatches the lyrics. Like
Yeah.
everything is working towards the same goal for me.
Hmm.
And so every detail, every flourish, every swell, all that stuff, it's all about that.
Hitting that
So yeah.
feeling
Yeah. So that's really what I
across.
was trying to capture.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a random side note, but for any like musicians or producers who are listening, it's like never forget that the technique is always in service of the emotion. You learn how to like
Yes.
reverse shit. You learn compression and EQ and all that shit, and it's like that's cool. That's all very useful. But don't ever forget that the point of that is to make your music like your music.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter like how much of the technical stuff if you don't know how to trust your intuition and encapsulate that feeling within the music versus somebody who's a complete novice but knows how to capture that. Like that's what's going to win for me every time.
Completely agree.
um yeah, it's different strokes for different folks. Some people like just really technical stuff because it's impressive, but for
Hmm.
me as a listener, I like stuff that's just like kind of speaking to life, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get that. Like as long as the song gets an emotion across for me, I feel like it's a good song. But yeah,
yeah, no doubt.
about that line about peeling peaches, I saw an article by Helen Ehrlich for Affinity magazine, and she wrote about that line, basically saying what you said, that it was like a reference to how in like Asian culture, parents would give their kids cut fruit, like to show their love, instead of outright saying it. And
Yep.
I kind of related to that because my grandma on my mom's side used to give us cut fruit all the time as kids. Like she would like not say anything, but like you can just tell. That's how a lot
Yeah,
of people
yeah,
show their love. And it just reminded me of that.
exactly.
It's just a
Yeah,
really
I mean, like,
relatable experience, I think.
yeah, that's fully it. That's exactly it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's just like, somebody feeding you, that's just an expression of love that comes even before the words "I love you." It's like when you're a baby,
True.
like that's how they show you they love you. It's that.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you mind if we talk about what you're working on now?
Yeah,
You gave
absolutely.
me a link to some of those unreleased tracks, and they were just outstanding to me. I love them.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so first off, on the track Bummy, from your Instagram teaser alone, I expected like a more involved and like upbeat, more intense song. And that introduction to Bummy, those strings and the short piano chords gave a feeling of suspense for sure. And that resolution into the beat was a great transition. The one short 808 note in that intro, the almost giving like a preview of the second half of the track, and hearing the full release, I was happily surprised to hear that rap verse. Great delivery. It went amazing with the beat, full bass, beautiful sample, great groove to the drums, and it definitely gave a nice change of pace from the more ambient introduction and singing that we've heard from you on tracks like Peas. And I haven't had a chance to analyze the lyrics like fully, but how would you describe the theme of that song?
Man, thank you. You really listened to that. Jeez. Yeah, I mean, the song is pretty much just I'm bipolar. I have bipolar disorder.
Mhm.
And so that song is pretty much just about being bipolar.
Mhm.
It's just like I kind of wanted to catch that in like the song in every aspect of like what it feels like to be depressed and what it feels like to be manic. And
Yeah,
so like within the sonics, I wanted that to be there, like that darkness, but also just like this kind of frenetic, almost ecstatic kind of vibe. So
energy.
you know,
Yeah,
some of the breakdowns, some of the transitions, it's like really like out of nowhere, but it provides like it provides a contrast and like a level of like random flashes of beauty amongst like all the other hard hitting shit.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, and within the lyrics, it's like I kind of wanted to just be like owning it, you know,
Mm.
just again like what I mentioned about like being fully vulnerable and fully confident in that. So for me, it's just like yeah, I'm bipolar, and then just kind of being like wow, like I feel like shit, but also I feel tight as fuck, and then just kind
Facts.
of doing it in like a way that's like it's sort of tongue in cheek, you know, it's not super
Yeah,
serious, it's all pretty zany. And so yeah, that's just me going out there and like owning my shit. I'm like fuck yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Great
just I
song.
want it to be fun. I want it to be fun as hell. Talking about a very unthink fun in a fun way. It's my goal.
Yeah. Now that you said that, it totally matches like the sonics of the song, like just that idea, because it's so there's so much contrast in that song. It's just yeah, it goes really well.
Thank you. Yeah, trying to get that all to be cohesive took a while,
Hmm.
and just like a lot of attention to detail for sure, just to make it like not feel like I wanted to get across that idea of like unpredictability and you know just like opposite ends of the spectrum all kind of crashing together,
Yeah,
but not in a way that's like not fun to listen to.
yeah.
So
So on Dio, you slow things back down a little bit with more like ambient pads, minimal drums. There's a beautiful guitar progression, some really emotional swells in there too, build-ups and drops throughout the song while still feeling natural and like chill. It's definitely like a summer type song to me. So like what were your
mhm.
thoughts when you were making it?
That one is just straight up like about like nostalgia. I mean, I'm glad that you caught the summer thing. To me, I
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of capture the feeling of like a summer night or thinking about a summer night rather.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah. And so that one's kind of interesting to me because the lyrics are not very literal at all. Like, because to me, like the song feels definitely like a lot of nostalgia, but if you look at the lyrics, there's some lines that make no sense at all.
Hmm.
Like, in one part, it's like, remember we were 18, memory was HD, crystallize in 10 speed, tape is fading out. Like
Hmm.
10 speed, like as far as I'm aware, that probably refers to bicycles, and crystallize is not a verb that goes with that at all. But again, like I was telling you earlier, like to me, it's completely about feeling, and
Yeah,
it's like whether or not it makes sense. Like feeling is in the words there. It lives between all that shit. So
true.
it's again, it felt right. So to me, it is right.
Hmm.
So yeah, that song is kind of just about nostalgia, and for me, also, I just wanted to make the track feel like kind of like warm and luxurious and gorgeous and just gratifying.
Yeah, kind of feels like that sunlight hitting you just after a long day, and you can just hang out with your friends, and just reminds me of summer.
Yeah, yeah. The guitar line, there's definitely like an aspect of that like built into it for sure.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's kind of the vibe with that one. It's definitely not as cerebral a song. You don't necessarily have to have the brain on to
Hmm.
like understand that. It's like really kind of like I'm sort of aiming at like a level beneath that. I'm just like, you know, plain feeling and just tapping into like kind of making somebody like tap into their own memories. I wanted
Yeah,
to just provide a canvas for that.
exactly. Okay, so
Yeah.
moving on to Boston. To me, that's a big contrast to Dio. It's a beautifully sad song to me, and your singing skills are definitely on full display here, and there's some amazing harmonies and vocal runs in this track. The instrumental is simplistic, but definitely gets the emotion across. There's an organ or maybe a Rhodes or something. It reminds me of Frank Ocean's solo, just because
Hmm.
the storytelling over a solo instrument, and it's just giving me the
Hmm.
same vibe as that. So, like, what went into that lyrically or production wise?
That one's an interesting one. Basically, so my partner Nick, who I make music with,
Mhm.
one night I was like, "All right, bro, I'm going to bed. I'm tired as shit." And he was like, "Wait. Like before you go to bed, like can you just sing something into this?" And he handed me an SP404, which is a little sampling device, and it has a built-in microphone that just sounds terrible. And so I just sang into that straight through, and then I went to bed. And literally, like what you hear in the song is just that one take going straight through.
Wow.
Um, and then so he just took that vocal and he pitched it up or like a few tones or whatever, and then
Yeah.
he played the Rhodes underneath it, but like he played the Rhodes in such a way that like you kind of don't really hear the transients. You
Yeah.
feel the harmony, you feel the chords, but like you don't hear the attack. So
Yeah.
it's like kind of an ambiguous sound, like sort of like an organ, sort of not.
Yeah, that's what
We wanted
confused
that.
me because there wasn't that
Yeah, yeah,
that loud attack.
yeah. So it's like it's very hard to pick that apart. But I mean, we it's kind of crazy because like that song really just poured out like that, and then he put the chords underneath afterwards, and then I put the harmonies
Uh,
after that. So it's that one kind of came together in its own interesting, spontaneous way. But
yeah,
yeah,
for sure. You need to get me an SP404. I love the sound of those vocals. Just
thank you.
I
Yeah.
thought there was like some complicated mixing that went into it to get it to sound like that, but sometimes I guess you just need that old equipment to get that.
Sometimes it's that the thing about the 404 is like it's definitely got like kind of a specific sound, specific vibe to it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like for us it's literally just you just use what we have lying around, you know.
Yeah,
We
for
like kind
sure.
of just pick up pieces of gear that are inspiring or fun or cool for us, and we know how to use them.
Hmm.
And then so just like whenever we're making stuff, it kind of doesn't matter what we use. We just use what we have around us, and we just let the inspiration drive, you know. So I think one thing I do want to say, the 404 is very cool, and if you get one, that's going to be super tight. But
Yeah,
also, I don't like don't ever fall into the trap for anybody listening, like who's trying to make music. Don't ever fall into the trap of believing that the gear is going to make the music for you, or that you need a piece of gear to make something like come to life. It's not
true,
true.
true.
It's not true at all.
Yeah.
The only
Okay.
time you should really, really need a piece of gear is if like you have a very clear vision of exactly the thing that you want to get, and you know that you can only get it from like using this piece of gear. And even then, I feel like part of what it means to be creative is to find solutions, to be a solution oriented person instead of
Yeah.
like a problem oriented person. So yeah, a lot of the stuff, like I mean, all the music that you hear, it's like we just made this in our rooms, and it's to me it sounds pretty damn good. It sounds exquisite,
Yeah.
but it's like we just took a lot of time and a lot of care and just finding solutions, you know.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so Lush. The instrumental kind of reminded me of the production you'd find in like Beach House or like Steve Lacy combined. But yeah, the lyrics are pretty sexual, but I think it really gets across the intimacy between you and your partner and that line about the fear of them leaving to go see new waters, if that's
Mhm.
accurate. The second half
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
song it has a beautiful instrumental break, giving the sample some space to breathe, and then swelling into an ending where you repeat that one line. I don't blame you for being confused, so please don't blame me for feeling used. And my favorite part of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
track is probably the use of the strings. They just push the song along into each new section smoothly, especially towards that crescendo at the end.
yeah, definitely. Wow, thank you, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to like hear it that closely. Yeah, that Lush is an interesting one because I think on the surface, I don't want to give too much away about it because I feel like
Yeah,
people should come to their conclusions. But like, there's songs that like speak about one thing, but they're kind of about something else. And so for me, this is a song that I think on the surface is about sex,
hmm,
but I think what I'm really trying to get at with everything there is um, a lot of different shit underneath that regarding identity and masculinity
yeah,
and insecurity. Like that's kind of the goal with the song. So I hope that like when it comes out, you know, people will take the time with it and give it like a few listens, a few repeated listens, and sort of kind of take that apart.
yeah. I was
Um,
gonna say
yeah,
that when the line when you're like I'm the best you'll ever have, that like self inflating type of language, like you needed to say that to give the person that you're with like faith and just to I don't know, try and get them to stay with you. And I definitely felt like that's something that's like around a lot in culture, and just we see that a lot. Everyone's just trying to be the best or like telling everybody else that they're the shit, and like you have to, I don't know, yeah. It's just like self-inflating language. It doesn't always come from a healthy place.
mm-mm. Yeah. I mean, like I really, it's just like to me, ego is kind of the opposite side of the same coin that is insecurity.
Hmm.
Um, like so that line, like to me, is like you know saying I'm the best you'll ever have. It's like that's that's not coming from a place of confidence. That's coming from a place of complete insecurity.
Insecurity, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of again like that's kind of what I'm getting at with like the emotion beneath the emotion and like
Yeah.
the feeling beneath the words. So yeah, with stuff like that. Yeah, that attitude I feel like is like you'll see that everywhere, but like what I'm really trying to shine a light on is yeah, what's behind that.
Yeah, that totally makes more sense now because when I heard it at first, I was like, huh, this does not sound like the person that made all these other songs. So I was like, oh, I mean, there's probably like this. The surface meaning is definitely not what he's trying to get at, but I just want to be sure about that underlying
Yeah,
meaning.
yeah,
But yeah, it definitely makes more
yeah, yeah,
sense now.
yeah. I've also I gave you the song like 3 hours ago, so it's
Oh
like
yeah,
there's definitely no expectation on my end. I'm super appreciative that you caught so much of the sonic so quickly. That's definitely took a lot of care with that song in particular.
hmm
So that means the world to me.
yeah, sure. It's just great to be able to hear this music like before it comes out, and I'm not having to wait that long to hear it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely keep it on the DL, but
Yeah, yeah, I will. Don't worry. Yeah, I mean that's all I have about the tracks. And is there anything else you want to talk about?
um I mean, man, I'm here for your questions. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as for what I've got to say, it's just I'm just here to really encourage anybody who's listening. Just be like, hey, like, don't be afraid to suck. You know,
Yeah.
sucking is the key to becoming dope. And I'm doing my best to just suck at things all the time because that's how you grow. That's how you grow. So, just anybody who's listening, just want to encourage you in that. And everybody is I do my best just to kind of get around to everybody who DMs me. So if you have
hmm
any questions about anything particular, I'm happy to help however I can.
Yeah, thank you
So
so much for coming on here and just talking to me and helping me out with this project. I mean, it means a lot to me. And I have a couple friends who are big fans of you too, so they're going to be stoked to hear this.
yeah, man, of course. I'm happy to help however I can. So
Yeah,
yeah, best of luck to you.
thank you. Thanks for
Bye.
listening, guys. Yeah.